Welcome, I'm Dragon, and today it's finally time to talk about the Cr-10. I ordered it on January 21st and received it on January 29th, so pretty quick shipping. I've also got to use it for around 5 months at the time of recording, and I've had 200 to 400 hours of printing time on this printer. So since its original release date in July of 2016 and costing around $300 now, is it something still worth buying in 2021, almost 5 years after its original release? Before we get into this, I want to mention that I bought this with my own money because I wanted a bigger printer to help with orders on my Etsy shop. When I got this printer unboxed and set up, I found out that the bed could not go low enough, so I ended up having to print a replacement Z end stop on my Ender 3 Pro to finally allow for the bed to be leveled on the Cr-10. From there, I printed a test dog, and it turned out flawlessly. Then I wanted to test the height of the Cr-10 with a rocket I had made for a 20-minute design challenge in Blender. This printed pretty well aside from some slight ringing throughout the print and some slight splitting at the top layer. Since these prints weren't the worst, I decided I wanted to print some of my orders on Etsy with this printer. This unfortunately did not go as expected and had imperfections on the first layer and along the sides of the next few layers, which made them unsellable. When this happened, I found out the bed had been warped a little while shipping, so I ended up getting some mirrors from Home Depot, which were actually pretty cheap and made the bed more leveled, and fixed the first layer issues for the most part. Unfortunately, the issue with the next few layers didn't really get fixed, so I found I needed to either reduce the temperature or raise the bed. So I opted for raising the bed. This did minimize the issue, but it was still there. And when I did try to decrease the temperature, they just immediately popped off the mirror. Since then, I've printed a decent amount of things with the Cr-10, and none of which were from my Etsy shop. And before I forget, I also printed a lot of earlier battery holder designs before I came up with one that actually worked. And as an upgrade, I've also printed some legs for the Cr-10 to save space. Ironically, I didn't print this on the Cr-10 and actually the Ender 3 Pro because it was a long print and I didn't really like the idea of it failing. Which brings me to my biggest issue with this printer: reliability. With all my testing, I definitely got a lot of successful prints and even some very nice looking ones, but I've also gotten lots of failed prints, probably around 1/6 of all prints, whether it be from layer shifting, clogged nozzles, slightly unleveled bed, or some other issue. Basically, what I'm trying to say is unless you really need a large printer and at a cheap price, then go with another printer like the Prusa Mini or even the Ender 3 Pro. By purchasing one of these other printers, you'll probably be saving money from either the cost of upgrading the printer or from the cost of failed prints. Personally, I do want to get another large printer to help with my Etsy shop, but this one is definitely not it. At the moment, I'm probably going to get a Prusa XL when it comes out, and assuming I can save up for it. Otherwise, if you really need to get a large printer right away, then a Voron would be my first choice. I personally haven't gotten to use one, but from what I've seen, they seem pretty good as long as you are good at building the whole thing. All the printers I've mentioned will be linked in the description below. But now, what is the print quality of the Cr-10 when it succeeds compared to the Prusa Mini and Ender 5? Ender 5, in my experience, is basically very similar to the Ender 3. This test will be my articulated lizards that I designed a little while ago, and actually they work very well as a test print. The first thing I tested was to see if the legs were loose, and sure enough, on the Prusa Mini, they were. But on the very last piece of the tail, it was not loose, so I had to kind of pop it so it could actually move. But when I moved on to the Ender 5, one of the legs was loose and the other 3 were not. But the tail wasn't really loose either, so I had to pop it out. On the Cr-10, on the other hand, none of the legs were loose, and the tail, when I tried to pop it off, actually just broke apart. But when it comes to the quality, you can very clearly see the difference between the Ender 5 and Prusa Mini compared to the Cr-10. The Ender 5 and the Prusa Mini were pretty similar though. But if you still want a Cr-10, here's a list of the pros and cons based on my experience with this printer. And just in case you're wondering, I probably did forget some. Well, there you have it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!